We respect and revere Jesus and Mary. Yes, we believe in the virgin birth of Jesus. We know he's one of the greatest messengers and a prophet and a Messiah, which the Jews reject, the Muslims accept. So you see, we accept Jesus as a Messiah, as a true Messiah. And as a Messiah, the Jews are still waiting for a Messiah. And you know what? Their definition of Messiah is not someone who is a God or someone to be worshipped. So your understanding of Jesus as God is completely flawed, because even Jesus never once claimed that he was God. Why would you believe something Jesus himself never claimed? I want to see what I want to see. I want to see what you're preaching. If you're preaching the three are one, then show me that in the Bible. That's all I'm asking. If I say Allah is one, and you ask me for evidence from the Quran, I will show you Surah Ikhlas. And I'll show you several other places in the Quran where Allah clearly says that He is one. There is no mention of the Trinity in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, in the Quran. This is something that you have actually got from the 4th century, from the Council of Nicaea, from the Council of Constantinople. That's what I'm saying. All I want to see is, if this is such an important doctrine, God should tell you in the Bible.
But no, it's not such an important. Just to go back to that, you're saying it's Council of Nicaea. So you're saying Paul's letters don't confirm infinity.
Show me. If it is there, show me, please.
Paul's letters?
Yeah, show me. Is that in the Bible? False letters?
Oh, take dates.
Jazakallah khair.
Three. Sunnah 3.
Shukran Habibi.
Make it strong. Keep it strength.
What? Okay.
But Mr. Speaker,
yes.
In Christianity, there's a different sector. At the same time, their book, it will never ever tell them three gods or Trinity, but they translate it the way they want it. You see?
Yeah, but this is, you see, if God's book is going to be just translated any way anybody wants, nilly-willy, okay? That is not the way you're supposed to interpret God's word. And especially the most important bits, you know, the most important doctrines on which your salvation rests.
My salvation rests on the Lord Jesus Christ dying for me on the cross.
Really? So are you saying that the Jehovah's Witnesses will be saved because they believe same as you? The Jehovah's Witnesses, because they don't believe in the Trinity, but they believe in the crucifixion.
Who?
The Jehovah's Witnesses.
Jehovah's Witness.
I don't know.
You don't know them?
No, they not. They have not even accepted Jesus Christ. They made
Of course they do.
No, they just created the religion.
No, they believe in the crucifixion. You said your salvation is only based on Jesus dying, which is the crucifixion.
And his resurrection as well.
Okay, and his resurrection. You know the Jehovah's Witnesses believe both of those.
Yes, but they have not accepted Jesus in their hearts.
Okay, so you got more criteria than just his crucifixion and resurrection. Because earlier you said that is all it's based on.
Look, the Bible says that everyone who looks for me with their whole heart, they will find me.
Yes.
And then you will know God, and then you will know the truth.
And that is the same every religion says. But a religion...
And have you ever done that? Because you just
no what? Sorry, no. Have you done what?
Yeah, have you ever, for example, got on your knees and asked God, who are you? I want to know you. It's between you and God.
Actually, I get more than on my knees. I put my head on the floor.
Answer my question.
I'm asking you question. I'm answering your question. If you allow me,
Yeah.
I'm answering your question.
Yeah.
Like the way Jesus, you know, brother, please do not interrupt if you don't mind. Jesus, when he wanted something, he prayed to his God. How did he pray? He didn't just get down on his knees like the way the Christians, they stop at the knees. We do not just do that. We do exactly like the prophets did. Like the way Abraham prayed, like the way David prayed, like the way Jesus prayed, like the way Moses prayed. How did they pray? They got down in the knees and then they put the head on the floor and they prayed to God. When Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, that's how he prayed.
Okay, so who is God?
Okay?
Who is God?
Jesus is God is God.
No, okay, but the Bible says God is love. The Bible says God is a spirit.
Sorry, God is loving?
Love.
Are you
God is love. Love. He is
okay.
love.
God is love, loving.
Yeah.
Okay, same thing,
Do you know
semantics.
what love
Is that a condescending question?
I answer my question.
You think
Why do you keep asking to
Okay.
answer my question?
First and foremost, are you saying God is only love?
Yeah.
Can he show his hatred if he wants to?
Sorry?
Can he show hatred if he wants to?
Yeah, against sin.
So it's not just love,
Not
right?
against people. He loves people.
Yeah, but no, I'm talking about people. Can he show his hatred against people?
That is a quality. That's not his nature. It's a whole different thing.
What do you mean quality? You know, nature is a quality.
His nature.
A nature, by definition, is a quality.
No, nature is your identity.
Okay,
That's who you
imagine
are.
your nature. If you're a
Yeah.
kind person, that is your quality. 3 persons, and that they might share a common name. Where does it say they are one?
Well, obviously, this.
Obviously?
You assume that.
Why obviously? No, why assume? This is what I've been telling you all along, that you're assuming things. It's not obvious, definitely not obvious. Okay, show me where it says they are one then. If that is not the verse. That is Matthew 28:19, which you just read. Is that right?
Matthew 28:19.
Yes, that's a great commission. Many people, many Christians use that verse to basically prove that this is talking about the Trinity. And you know what? Trust me, none of the people who basically baptize within the Bible, within the New Testament, none of them follow that particular formula. So no one baptizes in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. There are many baptisms in the Bible, okay, in the name of Jesus, but not in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Why would the people who are baptizing ignore the command of Jesus? You know why? Because this particular verse, if you read the history of this verse, was put on, was basically inserted in that particular place in Matthew, in the Gospel of Matthew, much later on. And this is the reason you do not see any other baptisms, because in the book of Acts there's quite a few baptisms, and none of them are by that particular Great Commission, by that particular command of Jesus. Go and baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And the other question I want to ask is, what is the name of the Father or the Holy Spirit? Or basically, well, we know the name of the Son. So, do you know the name of the Father in the New Testament or the Holy Spirit?
Father God.
That's not a name, a personal name. No? So your God hasn't blessed you with a name. Why not? I thought He loves you.
It doesn't matter.
It does.
No,
Because look.
No, look, Yuki, I'm sorry, but like you are, I'm sure, look, you live the holier life than I ever done.
Sorry, I'm not saying I'm holier than thou.
Look,
Sorry,
look, please.
I'm not.
Yeah, look, just,
I didn't claim to.
Can I
Yes,
just
please do.
And then you basically go to your mosque, you pray, you have all these like, you know, requirements or whatever it's called to do. But you're missing the point. No one can give you evidence, and God is not going to give you evidence for you to have like total peace of mind. It's not about understanding everything, it's about your heart. I believe my God is love, like love, not human love, real unconditional love.
Unconditional love?
Yes.
Oh my God. So you did not read the verse in Psalms 5, and you did not understand about God.
You did not understand. I told you Psalms is on the Old Testament. Jesus Christ has established the New Testament. I am not under, you are not under
No, wait,
the Old
wait.
Testament.
You also agreed that in the end days, He'll come and kill His enemies.
Yes, because it's written in the Bible. It's written in Revelation that Jesus...
So that's conditional, right?
No, it's not conditional.
So He'll just kill them?
You don't understand.
Are you saying He'll just kill them?
No, he's not.
Why would He kill them?
Because they have not accepted Jesus Christ.
That is a condition.
No, it's not. Man, He did everything for you. So.
Do you know what condition means?
And no, wait, let me ask you something.
No, don't change the topic. Do you know what condition means?
Condition means you have to do something in order
Exactly.
to get something.
So those people, the reason you said that they will not be killed is because they rejected Jesus.
Do you, okay, am I
Did they reject?
Yes.
Will they be killed
Yeah.
because they? So rejecting Jesus or accepting Jesus, this is what your life depends on at the end times.
Yes.
So if you accept Him, you'll be saved.
Yes.
If you reject Him, you'll be massacred. Whether you're a baby, you're a woman, you're a man, you're a cripple, you're basically someone who is disabled. Sorry, I didn't want to use that word, because there are many people who will be in that situation.
Yes.
They will reject Jesus.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is something that we as Muslims also believe, that the end time is the punishment for the people who reject God. And we Muslims say it is conditional. God's love is conditional, God's wrath is conditional. It is not unconditional, so do not say something that is not in the Bible.
I don't, again, we're not talking, I said God loves you unconditionally. Even if you go to hell, He loves you.
No.
Yes.
The reason He loves you, it is conditional. Are you saying that if you reject Jesus, He'll love you?
Yes, but I'm still going to hell.
Oh my God.
Wait, so what does love mean?
He loves you, man.
If you love someone, would you burn them?
No, God is holy, right?
But
salvation is about being...
No, wait. You said
Salvation is
God
about
loves them
holiness.
even if you sin.
Huh?
Okay? Would God burn someone that He loves?
You don't understand salvation. Salvation is about holiness. God is holy. I told you before. I told you that religion, the problem is with religion. That you can be the best on the set. You can be the holiest, whatever. You can still not reach God. You cannot get to Him. Only Jesus is the perfect Lamb who had to die for you in order for you to be able to have a communion and relationship with God. The salvation is about this. It's not about God loves you or not. Yes, He loves you. The Bible says that He died for you while you were a sinner.
No, you went on a whole lecture or something.
No,
I didn't
yes,
ask you.
because-
You went on a preaching mode when I asked
No,
you.
I didn't.
Does God?
I can answer you.
No. Does God love someone that He's going to burn?
Yeah.
So what's the meaning of love then?
I already explained to you. It's about
I
holiness.
think you are confused about even the meaning of love. The one that you keep mentioning so many times, you will misunderstand that meaning. Because love is something that you have an affection for, someone that this person you're loving for, you care for, you have an affection for. The last thing a person would think about is burning that person in hell or anywhere else.
So basically, you're making it sound like you're better than God.
No, I'm not.
Yes.
Actually, you're the one saying that God's love is unconditional. You're trying to twist God's judgment when saying that His love is unconditional. His love and wrath both are conditional, both in the Bible and in the Quran, and both in the Old Testament, New Testament, and the Quran as well.
Do you know that there's one condition? I know it sounds stupid before you start to criticize me, but
I didn't criticize you. I'm saying you're twisting the word.
I'm just trying to explain
Yeah, go on.
myself. So what's the condition? There's one condition to unconditional love. What is it? What is it that God has to give to you in order for you?
Nothing that God has promised you is unconditional. Everything that God has promised you is conditional. Even the punishment is conditional. Even the reward is conditional.
Okay, answer my question.
Yeah, go on.
What is the condition to unconditional love?
There's no such thing as unconditional love. Even for human beings, even for God, there's no such thing as unconditional love. Because unconditional love, what it means is you turn a blind eye to everything that person does and you just love him. I did.
No.
Because your question is basically a non-question.
Yeah.
You're saying an unconditional love is something that is illogical and something that neither the Bible nor the Quran advocates.
Like basically there is love and there is no love. We call it, humans call it.
No, there is something called love and there's something called hate.
No. I don't
The opposite of love is hate. Do you not agree?
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, but you're not letting me talk. It's really frustrating. So I'm calling it unconditional love because there is human love, so that people understand. There is human love and unconditional love. Unconditional love means that even if you do something bad, I still love you, right?
Yes.
A lot of times conditional love, we call corner love, is that if you're nice to me, I like you. If you, I don't know, mean to me, I hate you.
Okay.
That's human love and godly love. The only condition for unconditional love is free will. God has to give you free will, which He did in the Garden of Eden when He set up the tree of good and evil and He set up the tree of eternal life. God needs you to trust Him and choose Him, and out of your free will. He's not going to force heaven on you.
What are you talking about now? I don't understand.
I'm explaining.
You're explaining to me about unconditional love. Are you going to show me a single verse from the Bible where God says that His love is unconditional? Because I've shown you a place in the Bible where God hates the wicked, the wrongdoers, and you agreed with it. Wait. Every time you bring, look, with all due respect, every time you have brought up the evidence, it is something that you assume up here.
No, I don't.
Yes,
assume.
you haven't.
No, it's here.
Okay, again, look, whether it's here or it's here, it is from you.
We need that from the book.
It's not from the Bible.
No.
So why can't you show me from the Bible then?
Because what you need is evidence to believe.
Show me from the Bible the evidence.
Why do you need evidence to believe like that? Like why do you?
Because I don't believe in blind faith. That's why.
I'm not believing in blind.
You are. You said it's here or it's here.
No.
That is blind faith.
No. I explained to you the creation, which is in the Bible, right?
Show me anywhere in the Bible where God advocates unconditional love.
Look, you really just.
Is that a yes or a no? Do you know the verse?
Because you're not. Look, we're not talking. We're not on the same page.
So you're not going to.
No. The reason I think you're right. We are not talking about. We are not discussing the same Bible.
No, we are not.
Because all you're doing is it's here. It's here. What does here mean? You know, this is exactly what the Pharisees used to do. Because whenever they were asked questions, they used to give their own understanding, their own whims and fancies. And this is what Jesus protested against. And He calls them snakes and vipers. And this is what Jesus always basically rebuked them about. Because they used to do the same thing like the lady, with all due respect. This is what you're doing. You're saying it's here. It's here. That's not how it works. It should be in the book. Because your book is your guidance.
But it's in the book.
What's in the? So show me then.
I just told you, man. It's in the book. I told you.
Show me unconditional love in the book. Show.
Verse.
No, don't give me the verse number even. Give me something that you remember that shows that God's love is unconditional. Show me anything. Go
You
on.
need to get your own revelation from the Bible. That's it.
You know, my revelation is not the Bible. The Bible is corrupted. That's the reason I do not believe in it. It is true. Have you read your Bible?
Yes.
Okay, can God die?
He chose to.
So he commits suicide then.
No.
When you choose to die, you commit suicide.
Yes, because that was the only.
That is the biggest sin you can do. So you're saying God is basically, He says not to commit suicide, and then He commits suicide. He's basically a hypocrite now.
No, he's not.
Yeah, but you're saying you chose to die.
Look, you're trying to understand God with your brain, and you don't want to accept that.
Why would you not use your brain?
I never said He's not allowing you might to use.
You know what
your
God
brain.
says in the Bible? He says, love your God with all your heart, yes, with all your soul.
Keep Old Testament.
Have you got a problem with the Old Testament?
Yes.
You put it under the bus.
No.
You said Jesus was under the law of the Old Testament. So even your own God believed in the Old Testament, but you don't.
And do you know what Jesus said?
Okay, anyway, before I finish, let me finish the verse. God says, love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your
Mind, understanding. Or your mind.
So don't tell me not to use my mind. Because that's what God advocates, and this is what God commands you to do.
I did not say that to you.
You keep saying you're using this.
No.
How many times have you said this now?
But it doesn't mean I'm telling you not to use your mind.
So what is it you're telling me?
I told you to have understanding in concept. Don't believe.
Look, I gave you the context. I gave you the context.
And I gave it to you. But
You did not show me a single verse where God says that His love is unconditional. You haven't shown me anywhere.
You don't want to accept the truth.
What truth? You're saying it's from here.
Okay, can I talk? Second.
I let you talk so many times, and you haven't showed me evidence where God says His love is unconditional.
Look, also, this Old Testament says, love your God, whatever you just said. In the New Testament, it says, we love Him because He first loved us. Why do you ignore that?
Okay, shall I show you what it says in the New Testament about Jesus?
Yeah.
Okay, the people who don't believe in Him, what is He going to tell them? Do you know what He says?
Dude, you keep, I don't know, man, like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, this dude is going to tell you something from your Bible, which will go against both your mind and your belief now.
Why
Because
are you reading the Bible like you're reading the Quran? I know what you believe.
how do you know I read? How do I read the Quran?
The Quran, you believe the Quran is the literal verse that God spoke through Muhammad.
Okay, and the Bible is not the literal word of God. So whose word is
Holy
it?
Spirit inspired.
Is the Holy Spirit God?
Yes.
So it's from God. Thank you. You're just saying roundabout now. Okay. So let's see what Jesus says in the Bible about those people who do not believe in Him.
Do you read Quran? Do you ever read Quran?
Not the whole thing. I read about it. I mean, read some parts.
You want to read it? Yeah.
Yeah, people who have open mind read it.
No, I definitely want.
Because I read the Bible.
We read the Bible. We read the Quran.
Okay, I read it sometime, but not thank you.
That's fine. That's fine. She doesn't want it.
She have.
Don't force it on her.
Maybe at the end I give you this, you could read it.
I am going to read.
Should read it so you'll be better positioned to answer.
I at least thought like
So you could have knowledge about Islam, especially you to read the Quran and the interpretation of it.
Guys, that's all right.
I'll have it.
No.
Give her a chance.
I did.
Hang on, just give her
I
a
did.
chance.
I gave her the chance to read it and tell me in context while I was speaking to this gentleman here. Okay, while she's looking, I'm going to give you the context of this from someone who is a scholar. I know she doesn't care about scholars, but there are many people who might be watching. They might do care about the scholars. Yes, I agree this is a parable about Jesus, okay, who told his disciples this. But what is the intention of this particular parable? And this is what Gil's explanation to the entire Bible says. He explains it as follows: that it was that this is what will happen to the Jews when Christ shall come the second time. Jesus will destroy the Jewish nation for rejecting Him, and then all the other enemies will be slain and destroyed as well. Death and destruction will be the fate of whoever does not accept Jesus to reign as a warrior king. And this is basically who are the main people who are mentioned in this particular parable. So God here represents the vineyard owner. The tenants are the Jews. The servants are the prophets, and the Son is Jesus. So if you think I've taken it out of context, now I've given you the context.
What happens before that is very important in the Revelations and in Daniel.
Okay, what happens before
It
that?
explains that he will spread the word to all the people of the world, and then they decide
to reject
if they
him.
want to follow him or not.
Yeah.
If you don't follow him, you will have the wrath of God.
Yeah. This is
If you
exactly what I
follow him,
said.
You are saved, and you are one of him and his children, and he will protect you and he will save you in the second coming that will come.
And that is what exactly I said. That if you reject him, he is going to destroy you,
Yes,
regardless
he
of who you are.
He will,
So
but
don't
he-
say I have misunderstood that.
No,
But
no,
that,
but
by
you
the way,
must
that
see
is
the
the New
context.
Testament I've been reading, because you've been putting the Old Testament under the bus all this time.
You've got to understand the context.
I
He's
did give you the
giving a
context.
choice. And free will is extremely
My friend, I agree with you. I gave you the same context. I gave you the same understanding of the Bible.
If I want to follow Islam
Yes.
or not, it's free will.
Because earlier she said that God is loving, God is loving, God is loving. And then she said God is unconditional love. And even the meaning of love you misunderstood, because you said that God loves them, the sinners, but He's going to put them in the hellfire. I mean, what is the point of loving them if you're going to burn them for
He's
eternity?
going to do
I'm not
that.
familiar with this passage.
Say again?
Don't
I'm
do
not
that.
familiar with this passage.
Which passage? You're not familiar with this passage? Okay.
No, that is our
Whether you're
problem.
familiar or not, okay, the point which you already agreed before I gave you that passage is that Jesus is going to kill all his enemies who reject him. So you already agree with me.
Do you know that Jesus was talking about condemnation? Have you heard that those people who don't believe me are already condemned? Do you understand that? What does that mean?
If those people who reject Jesus, they are condemned.
Jesus was saying when he was walking in flesh on earth. He said that those who...
By the way, we believe in Jesus as Muslims?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm asking you how you understand.
As a prophet, where did he ever say I'm a God?
No problem with that.
When did Jesus ever say I'm God?
We agree with Jesus when he says on his life to these people who they reject him. No, hold on. We won't believe his state where he is. Jesus, when he was alive, ministering, and people who they reject him as a Muslim, we don't have a problem of these people. They've been condemned already for not following him and for not obeying him. We don't have a problem with that.
You see, this is what I'm saying. As Muslims, we respect and revere Jesus and Mary.
We are with
yes,
him,
we do
with
not.
Jesus.
Okay, one second. We respect and revere Jesus and Mary. Yes, we believe in the virgin birth of Jesus. We know he's one of the greatest messengers and a prophet and a Messiah, which the Jews reject, the Muslims accept. So you see, we accept Jesus as a Messiah, as a true Messiah. And as a Messiah, the Jews are still waiting for a Messiah. And you know what? Their definition of Messiah is not someone who is a God or someone to be worshipped. So your understanding of Jesus as God is completely flawed, because even Jesus never once claimed that he was God. Why would you believe something Jesus himself never claimed?
Wait, so you said you believe Jesus is the Messiah, but then why do you keep practicing your prayer, the Islam practices?
Jesus prayed like us, by the way. At least his prostration was like us, not like the way you do. So whom are we following? In fact, we follow Jesus. Okay, did Jesus eat pork? Wait, did Jesus eat pork? Did he eat pork?
I have no...
As a Jew, he did not. Okay? As someone who follows... exactly. So we do not eat pork. Yes? And this is something very similar again in Islam. And did he worship one God? Or did he say there's three in one?
This is a tricky question.
It's not a tricky question. It's a very fair question.
No, it's not.
Okay, I'll ask you the same question.
Okay, but now
Go on.
remember, the Holy Spirit,
why is that a tricky question? I don't
The Holy Spirit
understand.
came down when Jesus went up.
Say again?
There's
The
a
Holy Spirit.
contextual thing here. That
So, say again, the Holy Spirit?
when Jesus was lifted from the dead, and 40 days later when he rose up, only then did the Holy Spirit come down.
Was the Holy Spirit during the baptism?
So the Holy Spirit, but that's a different thing there.
Was it the same Holy Spirit or different one?
No, it's the same Holy Spirit, but but you got to understand the Holy Spirit.
Okay, go on. Explain it to me.
The Holy Spirit inside of you, let's do what basically inside of you, the Holy Spirit gives you
where is
the
yours?
context to understand the Bible. When what happens with baptism is the Holy Spirit comes on you to
Are you
preach.
listening?
Sorry. He just wanted to put the microphone. Yeah, please do.
Very interesting about
Yeah, apologies. Yeah, go on.
So the Holy Spirit inside of you, when you accept Jesus, that allows you to get an understanding of the Bible and the mysteries around it, which is
My question, with all due respect, was you said the Holy Spirit only came down after Jesus ascended. Is that right?
Yeah.
But I've already proved to you that the Holy Spirit was already there. So you're wrong over there. No, there's a difference between what you're saying, that the Holy Spirit only came after Jesus ascended.
Let me finish.
Okay, go on.
The Holy Spirit came to represent Jesus and do Jesus' work inside our hearts when he left. And that's important to understand. Because inside with the Holy Spirit in your heart, it helps you to understand the Bible. It's for you. When you are baptized, the Holy Spirit comes
It's okay, carry on.
It comes on you, and then you can preach. And it gives you the power to preach.
Okay.
You
know what? That is not what we were talking about. We were talking about whether the Holy Spirit was already here before Jesus, when Jesus was here.
Remember, the Holy Spirit was there from the start.
Exactly.
I am the breath.
No, I meant was he known?
Was the Holy Spirit creating things? It is there.
Look, if you're saying the Holy Spirit was already here, then do not say that he did not. Do not say that the Holy Spirit only came after Jesus left. Because if he was already here, then he was already here. Okay, you explain to me, because I don't think he's doing a very good job.
Are you talking about the Holy Spirit after the resurrection of Jesus? Or
okay, the question was this: was the Holy Spirit already present before Jesus left?
Okay, you have to understand. Before Jesus left.
Yes.
Where present?
Wait.
Explain the context of
Forget about where.
On earth.
Was he present or not? That was the question.
This is
Again, a trick question, is it?
Yeah,
because
every question of mine is a trick question now.
You're not asking me what presence it is.
Why would I?
Was he present on earth?
Whether he was present inside you, inside your body, or whether he was present as a dove floating over. By the way, was the dove? Was the dove in flesh as well? So was the dove of flesh? He wasn't flesh.
No, because that's not.
Was it flesh?
Wait, he's talking about the Holy Spirit as the comforter, and he's talking about when Jesus was baptized.
The comforter when Jesus leaves.
Yeah, but he's
guys, was it the same Holy Spirit or a different one? The comforter, was it different to this one?
It's a shade. It doesn't mean anything. The Holy Spirit is not. The Holy Spirit is not a dove. It's a spirit.
Okay. That spirit, Holy Spirit.
Yes.
That spirit.
Yeah.
Was that the same Holy Spirit
Yes.
which turned into a bird, into a dove?
Where are you getting that from?
From the baptism of Jesus.
No, he just there was a dove. No.
Yeah, was the dove the same Holy Spirit or was it
The dove
different?
is not a Holy
The
Spirit.
dove has got nothing
No.
to do
Okay,
with
did
this.
the dove did the Holy Spirit manifest as a dove?
No.
So who was the dove then?
Okay, for the people of that day,
I don't think you're aware of your
what
Bible.
they saw
honestly.
is a dove coming down, but it's unseen.
Okay, let me ask you the same question. Did the Holy Spirit manifest as a dove during the baptism of Jesus?
I would, for me, not really.
Not really?
For the people of the day, they did not understand this. So there
I'm
was
asking
a
you,
dove,
not the people of the day.
There was a dove that they saw.
Yes.
And for them, then it's something that they can see.
Okay.
Because Jesus worked a lot in parables and physical things. Because the people of the time, their minds were closed. I mean, it's not like ours.
Did the baptism of Jesus take place even?
With the Holy Spirit, if you filled
Okay, did the baptism of Jesus take place?
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Did
that
the
was a
people
big
hear the
reason.
voice of God?
It was a big reason for
That's
that
fine,
to
that's fine. I'm
take
not
place
asking you
when
the reason
Jesus-
yet. Wait, hold on.
I don't understand.
Listen to the question. During the baptism, did the Father speak? And the people heard?
Yeah, this is the son.
Okay, so that is one thing, which is the Father.
This is my son,
Secondly,
the one I wanted, yeah.
there was the dove floating above between the heavens and between
They
Jesus.
saw something that looked like a dove or something.
Okay,
Yes.
whether it's a dove, whether it's a bird, whether it's an eagle, whether it's a
something.
seagull, doesn't matter what it is. This bird, whatever they saw, was that the Holy Spirit?
No, it was a symbol.
Let him answer if you don't mind.
No,
Let him
for
answer.
me, what came down
Yeah?
was the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
Onto Jesus, but it's on Jesus, not in Jesus. He already had the Holy Spirit in him. And that's very important.
So did Jesus not have the Holy Spirit in him at all?
He had it from the beginning in him.
Okay, so now you got the Holy Spirit as a
He's
dove,
the Holy Trinity,
and you got the Holy
he's
Spirit
had it
inside
inside of
Jesus. That's fine. Okay, look, I think we're just going about
No, it's-
getting the getting the
that's
Trinity
what's very-
confused.
You're just very loud, to
No,
be
but-
honest.
no,
Like your
no,
heart
no.
is not in the right place.
No, what I really like
Thou
about
shalt not
the
judge.
argument- What I
I'm not
like
judging.
about
I
You
don't
are.
care. No,
You are.
No, the Bible says you know a
No,
tree
wait,
by its
Agnes.
fruits.
Anyway,
That's
what
it.
fruits?
Agnes.
What fruits of
How do you
mine?
know a tree? If the fruits are
Wait,
right,
so which fruits of mine are evil?
you're not listening. You keep talking. You're very convinced, and that's fine. But be open and listen.
I
to
let
other
you talk so
people.
many times. Why are you saying I don't listen?
Because you ask questions and you expect a certain answer, and if you're not getting it, you don't accept.
No, you said that's a trick question.
Maybe
Yeah,
she didn't
because
understand the
that's what-
question.
You know who says it's a trick question?
Did you do his? Do you understand his question?
Has it ever
Okay,
happened?
okay.
Has
No,
it-
no, no.
Anyway, I don't want to go about by her judgment because
yeah.
her judgment is her character. She can judge
I
whoever she
really
wants.
like this
Yeah,
conversation.
but you see,
I must say from my side,
Yeah.
I don't think I've got enough tools and arguments.
Yeah, you're a humble
to
person,
discuss
and I
with
can
you
sense
now.
that.
And I respect
I-
that you know
I understand
my
you're a
Bible.
humble person, and I
That's
respect
good
that as well.
you do.
Okay.
Although I don't think you understand it that well. You
Which part did I not
the
understand? Go on,
verses.
tell me.
You can repeat the verses and in a kind of a way understand the verses, but not the context to me yet. But I respect you for that because I can't counter argue you with the Quran, and that's something that I'm lacking in my education.
I did not bring up the Quran.
No, but also from
And I did not ask you for a counter argument. You said I do not understand the context. Wait. You said
my Jesus. I need to understand where you.
no. It's not attacking. By the way, he's my Jesus as well.
No, we don't have.
And I love him. And I do not say he called people dogs like the way you guys believe. Okay? That is a racist term and that is a sin.
No, I'm not racist.
Can I
No,
ask
I'm
you
not.
No, I'm saying Jesus is.
No, what I'm telling you,
Jesus,
I'm
according to your
respecting you.
Bible, is considered someone who called a woman who came to him who was in need and her daughter, and he says he basically ignores her first. And no, before that he says, I've not come except for the Lordship of Israel. And then he ignores her like 3 times. And finally when the disciples ask her to say something to her, so she will go away and they will not disturb. And then Jesus says, I do not cast the bread of the children to the dogs. Who are the children and who are the dogs
Yeah,
here?
you see, now you're going down into certain bits of the Bible.
Why not?
Concentrating
Why
on
not?
that.
Is that a trick question as well,
Because you're
lady?
trying to-
Yes, everything that is
you're
difficult for you is a
trying
trick
to
question.
change
Very
about
convenient.
Something that you've read that you clearly don't understand.
Do you understand it?
Unfortunately, I do not understand the context yet.
Do you understand
of
it?
that because I've got to understand the Bible
But I
better.
don't want to touch
And
you.
that's
Why?
why.
Why? It's difficult.
No,
Because I feel like you're very proud.
I'm proud? No, I'm actually very assertive.
I respect
Okay?
you a lot.
If you think,
I respect you, but you're
look, whether you call me proud or not, that is your judgment. Okay?
I'm not judging.
You are judging. When you say you're proud, that is a judgment. You know what? Jesus judged that woman as well. He called her dogs.
Yeah. Oh, so you're not okay
No, we
or
need
what?
to.
No, is it okay for you to call a woman a dog?
You cannot, you see-
Especially if she comes to you for help.
Look, you just want to hear what you want to hear. It doesn't look.
Why didn't you tell me then?
Wait,
If you think I'm
can I say
misinterpreting.
something?
Yes.
Basically, it's like I'm telling you. I can tell you 9 things out of 10 which are like correct. You still gonna grab that one that you don't understand.
And that is the one you will not respond to. Why?
Because I don't know everything, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I don't know. I'm
Look,
not
if you
dumb.
said that,
I'm not-
then I would accept it like this gentleman here. He said, I do not know. Brother, please, if you don't mind, okay, please. What I'm saying is that if you said I don't know, then I will respect that. But you said I misrepresented it. You said I am someone who's proud. You said I do not understand things. You said I've taken it out of context. You made so many judgments on me, yet you couldn't prove even one of them.
Not everything is a judgment. Sometimes maybe you really don't understand.
Maybe we need to look up the word judgment then.
Wait, give me a second.
Okay, so
Look,
tell
the
me-
Bible said- no.
Tell me about the woman who was called a dog.
I'm so
Why would
tired.
Jesus call someone a dog?
The woman is
Why?
called a dog, man.
Why?
That's
I do not.
the
Because
purpose
to
of
me
this
as a
conversation.
Muslim, that is an insult to my prophet.
But it's your culture.
And I want to defend my prophet against the lies spread by your Bible.
That's the thing.
No, no.
Okay? So just like you get offended when I talk about Jesus in a negative way, I get offended when you talk about Jesus in a negative way. To me, anyone who calls a woman in need, especially when she has faith. Look, the reason the woman came to this man, Jesus Christ, is because she had faith in him. She gets down on his knees and she's literally